Welcome to the Deep Dive. Today we're diving into Saudi finance.
Looking at a real power player.
Abdulhadi Ali Saif Shayif. You ready for this?
Absolutely.
All right, so we'll trace his path, starting from earning an econ degree in Beirut.
All the way to becoming the chairman of Deutsche Securities, Saudi Arabia.
Now we're not just going to skim the surface of his resume, though. Right.
Right, we'll really get into his leadership style, how he champions this idea of corporate governance, and how his decisions have really impacted Saudi Arabia's economic development.
It's like we've got this all-access pass to see how someone like Shayif operates at the very top levels of finance.
Exactly.
But how do we even get this inside scoop?
Well, we've got some pretty incredible sources lined up. In-depth profiles from Decipher.
Oh, and Dow.
Yeah, and some great market analysis from Reuters.
Bloomberg, too, right?
Of course. And even board membership details from Mubasher.
Wow. Okay, so let's rewind the clock.
Way back to 1970.
Okay, so picture this. There's a young Abdulhadi Ali Saif Shayif.
Just graduating with his economics degree from the American University of Beirut.
Now, this isn't just some random fact. This background is going to play a huge role in his future success.
You know, it's amazing how that solid foundation in economics can really give you the tools to handle, to navigate that whole complex world of global finance.
It's like back then he was already studying the instruction manual for the whole global economy.
Yeah, and not just studying it, but actually putting all those principles into practice.
He's a doer.
He is, and you can see it in his career trajectory.
Oh, so?
Well, starting from those early roles, you see him just steadily climbing the ranks, taking on more responsibility and eventually landing that top spot at Deutsche Securities Saudi Arabia as chairman.
I read that Decipher actually attributes the company's expanded influence in Saudi Arabia, directly to his leadership.
Yeah, so he's not just there for the title, he's really making a difference.
He's making things happen.
Yeah, exactly, and it goes way beyond just Deutsche Securities. He's also got board positions at Al Awwal Bank and Bupa Arabia, so that gives him influence across multiple sectors.
Okay, so we see he's got this super impressive track record. He's involved in a lot of different things. But what about his actual leadership style? What makes him tick?
Now, that is where it gets really interesting. Reuters, they highlight his emphasis on robust governance and sound financial practices.
I mean, those sound like corporate buzzwords.
They do, but in Shayif's case, they actually mean something. They lead to real actions and real results.
So I'm curious then, how does this commitment to robust governance play out in real life? What does it actually look like?
Well, Bloomberg, they point specifically to his insistence on transparency and accountability as key parts of his whole approach to corporate governance. He gets it, For companies to do well, to really thrive and attract investors, they've got to operate ethically, responsibly.
So it's not about, cutting corners.
No.
For a quick profit, it's more about building a system that's sustainable, trustworthy for the long haul.
It's like he's creating a financial ecosystem, one that can weather any storm.
I like that analogy.
And this all ties in perfectly with Saudi Arabia's own economic goals.
Right.
They're trying to diversify, modernize, become a global player.
Become a leader on the world stage.
Exactly. And for that to happen, they have to build confidence among these international investors.
So Shayif's focus on transparency and good governance, that really plays into that, right?
It does. It helps build credibility and attract the kind of investment they need to make those ambitious plans happen.
So it's not just about following the rules. It's about setting a higher standard.
And leading by example.
And that's something that Shayif has consistently done, right, throughout his whole career.
Consistently.
So we kind of zoom out a little bit. We start to see how his individual decisions, his leadership decisions, are actually contributing to this much larger story.
The evolution of Saudi Arabia's entire financial scene.
Now, speaking of evolution, something that keeps coming up in the research is Shayif's commitment to innovation.
Decipher actually points out how he adapts to market dynamics and technological advancements.
So it's not just about keeping up with the times.
No, it's about anticipating what's next and making sure the companies he leads are ready to succeed in a world that's constantly changing.
Because the financial world, that moves fast. It must be a real challenge to always stay ahead of the curve. I'm curious how he fosters that kind of innovative thinking, not just for himself, but for everyone he works with.
Well, according to Reuters, a big part of it is his approach to mentorship. They talk about how he shapes strategic direction and mentors, like up-and-coming leaders.
And he's bringing them along with him.
He is, and it really comes through in those board meetings and planning sessions.
So it's not just him dictating everything.
No, he creates this environment where people feel like they can think differently, challenge the way things are done.
I love that.
And that's where his leadership style really shines. He knows that building a successful company or organization, it's not just about him being brilliant. It's about creating that culture of innovation where everyone's contributing their best ideas.
Collaborating.
Exactly.
So it sounds like he's creating this breeding ground for new ideas.
Yeah.
Which is super important in finance.
Especially in finance, yeah. It's constantly evolving.
But it can't just be about brainstorming, right?
Of course not. You got to execute.
Yeah.
And he's got high standards there, too, especially with things like managing risk.
Reuters mentioned that, too, right? How he focuses on not just chasing profits, but building for the long haul.
Yeah, long-term sustainability, making sure things last.
Which makes me think about his time at Deutsche Securities, Saudi Arabia. I mean, finance, that world can be volatile. So how do you navigate those ups and downs while sticking to those principles?
Well, Reuters specifically called out his focus on, that robust governance, those sound financial practices. They said that was key to getting through those tough times.
So it's not about taking huge gambles. It's more about calculated moves.
Strategic decision-making, exactly.
And this all fits into the bigger picture, right? Saudi Arabia's economic goals.
Yeah, they're not just looking for quick wins.
They're building something that lasts.
They want to be a major player on the global stage.
Which brings us back to corporate governance. Bloomberg really highlighted Shayf's focus on transparency and accountability.
Yeah.
So how does that actually translate into attracting foreign investment, building a stronger economy?
Okay, so imagine you're an investor. You're looking to put your money into a foreign market. You want to be sure, that the companies, they're operating ethically, that their finances are legit, that there are systems in place to prevent corruption.
You want some guarantees.
You want to feel secure. And that's exactly what Shayif's focus on good governance does. It creates that kind of environment.
It's like building trust between Saudi Arabia and the global investment community.
Exactly. And that trust, it's essential for attracting that capital that they need to, to fuel this economic transformation they're aiming for. It's about creating a system that's attractive to investors, yeah, but also sustainable for the long term.
Resilient.
Yeah. Okay, so we've talked about his leadership style, his commitment to good governance, his ability to really steer organizations through challenging times. But is there more? What about that innovation piece? Saif mentioned that.
Right. That was a big part of their profile on him.
Yeah, remember they described Shayif as someone who's always adapting to market changes, to technology.
So he's not just reacting to change, he's ahead of it.
Anticipating it, which is crucial, especially in the financial world.
Things move so fast there. What are some examples of how he's brought that innovative thinking to life?
Well, our sources, they don't go into specific examples, but they do paint this picture of a guy who's not afraid to try new things, embrace technology, adapt to the market, whatever it throws at him.
So the financial landscape's always changing, and he's right there with it.
Leading the way.
That's a true leader right there.
And that forward thinking, it also shows up in his mentoring. Remember Reuters talked about how he helps shape strategic direction, mentors those emerging leaders?
Yeah, it's more than just passing on knowledge.
He's pushing them to think creatively, to challenge the status quo, come up with their own solutions.
Like building a legacy.
It is a legacy of not just successful people, but creative thinkers. People who can really drive progress.
And the Saudi financial world, that's amazing.
And that brings us back to the heart of this deep dive, understanding the person behind the titles, what motivates him, what are his values.
Based on what we've learned, it seems like this mix of vision, commitment to excellence, and a real desire to contribute to the growth of Saudi Arabia.
To help the economy develop.
And maybe even a bit of that professorial spirit, like wanting to pass on knowledge and inspire the next generation.
That's a great point. It makes me wonder. If we could sit down with Shayif, just ask him one piece of advice for aspiring leaders, what do you think he'd say?
Now that is something to think about. We've learned so much about him, his career, his leadership style. But what's that one takeaway?
That golden nugget of wisdom.
What would it be?
It's a good question. Maybe we can answer it together in the final part of our deep dive.
Okay, so let's kind of shift gears here.
Back to the main takeaways from our research.
We started this whole deep dive in Beirut, remember?
With that young economics grad.
And we followed him, all the way to the top.
To those boardrooms of some of Saudi Arabia's biggest financial institutions.
It's pretty amazing, right?
It is.
To Saif and Dow, they gave us that roadmap.
They did, and then those insights from Reuters, Bloomberg, they really helped us understand his leadership.
So we learned that Abdulhadi Ali Saif Shayif, he's not just about the numbers.
No, he's committed to doing business the right way.
Transparency, accountability.
Sustainability, the whole package.
And we can't forget how much emphasis he puts on mentoring those future leaders. Reuters really highlighted that.
Yeah, his commitment to the next generation, it's a big part of his legacy.
He's not just building companies, he's shaping the whole industry.
By empowering others.
Now, as we wrap up, I want to circle back to that question we asked earlier. What advice would Shayif give to aspiring leaders?
Based on what we've seen, I think he'd say vision and integrity. Gotta have both.
Right. It's not enough to just have big dreams.
You gotta reach them ethically for the long haul.
It's about building that trust.
Inside and outside the organization. Yeah, that seems to be a key theme for him.
And I bet he'd also emphasize being able to adapt.
Oh, absolutely. The financial world, it never stands still. You gotta be able to move with it.
So it's not just about a solid plan.
You gotta adjust, embrace new ideas, be flexible.
And that connects back to his leadership style. That focus on mentoring, encouraging creative thinking.
It all ties together. He knows that real innovation comes from collaboration, openness to new ideas.
So for our listener, the big takeaway here is leadership isn't just about being brilliant.
It's about building that strong ethical foundation.
And a culture of innovation.
Giving others the tools to succeed.
And those are principles that go beyond just finance, right?
Oh, for sure. Leading a team, starting a company, even just trying to make a difference in your own world, Shayf's story has lessons for everyone.
So as we wrap up this deep dive into the world of Abdulhadi Ali Saif Shayif, keep exploring, keep questioning.
Keep diving deep into the stories that shape our world.
And until next time, keep learning and keep growing.
We'll see you then.